The war between the Zorith Empire and humanity had ended only 3 months ago. The peace was fragile, like a glass bridge stretching over a storm. One wrong step, and it could shatter. Captain Marcus Hale stood at the front of the human delegation, ship, watching the alien capital grow larger on the viewing screen. The city glittered in the light of 2 suns, its spires like crystal spears reaching into the blue haze of the atmosphere. The Zorith called it Velthara, the heart of stars. He had fought for almost 10 years against these people. Now, instead of holding a rifle, he wore the white and silver dress uniform of the Earth Defense Command. His medals shone on his chest, each one a reminder of a battle survived and a friend lost. Marcus was not here to fight anymore. He was here to keep the peace. "Captain," said Commander Rourke, the leader of the diplomatic team, stepping beside him. "Remember, the Zorith don't forget insults. Every word matters. Every gesture matters." Marcus gave a small smile. "Understood, sir. I'll keep my hands away from my weapon and my mouth away from trouble." Rourke didn't smile back. "Good. You'll be introduced to the royal family today. That means the princess. She's known for her temper." The ship descended toward the landing platform. Marcus felt the soft vibration through the deck. Plates as the landing struts touched alien stone. The ramp lowered, revealing a wave of warm, scented air. He stepped out into Velthara for the first time. The sky had a faint violet tint, and the twin suns painted everything with sharp, golden light. The air smelled faintly of flowers mixed with something metallic. Tall, elegant buildings rose in every direction, made of some kind of crystal-like material that caught the sunlight and threw rainbows into the streets below. At the base of the ramp stood the Zorith welcoming party, soldiers in deep blue armor, their long spears gleaming, and robed officials with silver circlets around their heads, and at the center of them stood Princess Aelira. Marcus recognized her immediately from the briefing files. She was tall, with skin the color of pale gold, and long hair like spun silver that moved even without wind, as if alive with static energy. Her eyes were sharp, almost luminous, and she wore armor-like robes embroidered with starlight patterns. When their eyes met, she froze. It was only for a moment, but Marcus noticed it. Her expression changed from formal detachment to something else, something like surprise. "Captain Marcus Hale of Earth," the Zorith herald announced, his voice deep and musical. "Honored warrior, bearer of the flame of valor." Marcus stepped forward and bowed slightly, the way the cultural advisor had taught him. "Your Highness," he said. His voice was calm, but his instincts told him she was studying him too closely, like she was searching for a memory. Princess Aelira inclined her head slightly, but did not smile. "Captain Hale," she said. Her voice was cool, carrying the soft tones of the Zorith language. "Welcome to Velthara." The official greetings continued, but Marcus could feel her gaze on him even when others spoke. Something about it made the back of his neck itch. They were escorted to the royal palace, a massive structure carved into the side of a mountain, with waterfalls spilling from its terraces and glowing vines climbing its walls. Inside, the air was cooler, scented with some kind of sweet incense. The floor was polished stone that reflected the light from hanging crystal orbs. The delegation was led into the Hall of Stars, where the king and queen waited on thrones carved from black crystal. The hall's walls displayed giant windows, showing the sky outside, where ships drifted like silver fish in the distance. Formal speeches were made, promises of cooperation exchanged, and the treaty was read aloud. But Marcus kept catching the princess glancing at him with the faintest crease in her brow, as if she was trying to place him. After the ceremony, the delegation was shown to their guest chambers. Marcus's room was spacious, with tall windows and a balcony overlooking the city. But before he could settle in, a soft chime sounded at the door. When it opened, he found Princess Aelira standing there alone. "Captain Hale," she said quietly, her usual sharp tone replaced with something more careful. "May I speak with you privately?" Marcus was surprised but stepped aside. "Of course, Your Highness." She entered, her movements graceful, almost predatory, as she looked around the room. Then she turned back to him, her silver hair catching the light. "You remind me of someone," she said slowly. "Someone I once knew, long ago." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "I'm fairly sure we've never met before." "Perhaps," she replied, but her gaze was unwavering. "But there is something about your eyes, your face, even your stance. It is unsettling." He crossed his arms. "Is that a good unsettling or a bad unsettling?" For the first time, a faint smile touched her lips. "That remains to be seen, Captain." She stepped closer, her golden skin almost catching the sunlight streaming through the window. "Tell me, were you ever on Velthara before the war?" "No," Marcus said. "The first time I saw this world was this morning." Her eyes narrowed, slightly as if she didn't believe him. Then, without another word, she turned to leave. At the doorway, she paused and glanced back at him. "If you are who I think you might be," she said softly, "then your presence here will change more than just the fate of our worlds." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, she was gone, the door sliding shut behind her. Marcus stood there, staring at the closed door. The war hero in him wanted to dismiss her words as political drama. But something in her tone made him uneasy. He had faced alien soldiers, monstrous war machines, and space battles in the cold void. But whatever was, behind the princess's strange reaction felt like a different kind of battle entirely, one he didn't yet understand. The next morning, Captain Marcus Hale woke to the faint sound of alien bells echoing through the city. The twin suns had just risen, painting Velthara in warm gold and violet light. He stood on his balcony, looking over the endless crystal spires. From this height, the streets below looked like glowing rivers, filled with people wearing flowing robes and metallic jewelry. Skyships moved silently between towers, their silver hulls catching the morning light. For a man who had spent most of his life in war zones, it felt strange to see such peace. Yet he could not forget Princess Elira's words from the night before. "If you are who I think you might be," he told himself it was just politics. But something about her tone had felt personal, almost emotional. Later that day, the human delegation was scheduled for a formal tour of the Royal Archives. Commander Rourke believed it was a symbolic gesture, a way for the Zorith to show they had nothing to hide. Marcus wasn't so sure. In war, the side that shows you its secrets usually hides bigger ones. The Royal Archives were located deep within the palace, past heavy stone doors and guarded hallways. Two Zorith guards, tall and motionless like statues, opened the doors to reveal a massive chamber filled with glowing shelves. Each shelf was lined with crystalline tablets that pulsed softly with stored information. The royal archivist, an elderly Zorith with skin like burnished bronze, greeted them. "These records," he said, "hold the history of our people for the last 10,000 cycles." His voice was deep and slow, like waves rolling on a shore. Marcus followed the group at first, listening politely, but after a while, he found his attention drifting. A small side hallway caught his eye, darker than the rest, with a faint glow at the far end. He hesitated. The group was still busy listening to the archivist's speech. Quietly, Marcus slipped away. The side hallway led to a smaller chamber, lined with only a few shelves. The air here felt different, colder, heavier, like the room itself was holding its breath. In the center stood a pedestal holding a single crystal tablet. Marcus stepped closer. The tablet's surface shifted at his touch, glowing brighter. Images appeared. An official Zorith marriage registry. The text was in the alien script, but a translation shimmered into view thanks to his translator implant. His eyes froze on the names. Spouse A. Princess Alyra. House Velthera, Spouse B. Marcus Hale, son of Jonathan Hale, Earth Diplomatic Corps. Marcus blinked. That was his name. His father's name, too. The date on the record was more than 20 years ago, when Marcus had been a child. This can't be right, he whispered to himself. Ah, you found it. The voice behind him was calm, but it made him turn instantly. Princess Alyra stood in the doorway, her silver hair catching the dim light. You've been following me? Marcus asked, his tone cautious. I knew you would come here, she replied, stepping into the room. When I saw you yesterday, I thought I was mistaken, but now... She glanced at the tablet. It seems I was not. Marcus shook his head. What is this? Some kind of mistake? A fake record? Her golden eyes narrowed. It is no mistake. By the laws of my people, you are my husband. Marcus let out a short, humorless laugh. I think I would have remembered marrying an alien princess. You were a child, Alyra said evenly. So was I. The union was arranged by our parents to unite our worlds. It was a symbolic marriage, meant to be confirmed when we came of age. Marcus stared at her. Then why didn't I know about it? Because before the confirmation could happen, the war began, she said, her voice turning hard. Our worlds tore each other apart. The treaty was abandoned, and your people forgot. Marcus took a step back, his mind racing. His father had been a diplomat stationed on neutral worlds before the war. Could this be true? And if it was, why had his family never spoken of it? Alyra stepped closer, her expression unreadable. The registry is proof. Our bond was never broken. By our laws, you are still bound to me. This is insane, Marcus muttered. Even if that's true, the war changed everything. Perhaps, she said softly, but the law does not change for war. And now that you have returned, the Council will have questions. The tension between them only grew over the next few days. Marcus avoided her when he could, but the Zorith Palace was a maze of ceremonies, meetings, and formal dinners. Inevitably, they kept crossing paths. At one dinner, seated at opposite ends of a long crystal table, Marcus caught Alyra watching him as he spoke to a Zorith officer. She didn't look away when their eyes met. Instead, she raised a cup of shimmering wine in silent acknowledgement. Other times, he caught whispers among the palace staff when he passed, servants stealing glances, guards straightening when he entered a room. It was as if the rumor of their supposed bond was spreading quietly through the palace walls. Marcus knew one thing. If the Zorith Council decided to enforce their law, this marriage could become a political storm. And storms in space politics were just as deadly as ones on the battlefield. One night, unable to sleep, Marcus wandered the palace corridors. The halls were quiet, lit only by the soft glow of wall crystals. His footsteps echoed against the polished stone. He found himself outside the balcony garden, a wide terrace filled with alien flowers that glowed faintly under the stars. The air was cool, and the faint sound of waterfalls drifted from the mountain slopes. Alyra was there, standing at the edge, looking out at the city. Marcus almost turned to leave, but she spoke without looking at him. Do you hate me for not telling you sooner? He walked forward slowly. I don't hate you, I just don't know what to believe. She turned to face him. Believe the record. It is the truth. But I understand why you doubt it. To you, I am an enemy you fought for years, and yet, by fate or law, we are bound. Marcus studied her face in the starlight. If this bond is real, what do you want? Do you even want it? Her gaze didn't waver. I want peace between our worlds. But I will not lie. I also want to know the truth. Why were we separated? Why did your people abandon the Union? I don't have those answers, Marcus said quietly, but I'll find them. For a moment, they simply stood there, the cool night air between them. Then Elira stepped past him toward the doors. The council will demand a trial of truth, she said, pausing at the threshold. If you pass it, no one can deny our bond. If you fail... She let the words hang in the air, and then she was gone, leaving Marcus alone under the alien stars, his mind full of questions and the feeling that his mission had just become far more dangerous than any battlefield. The Royal Council chamber was silent, except for the sound of the great crystal doors closing. Marcus stood at the center of the circular room. Around him sat 12 members of the Zorith High Council, their golden robes glimmering under the soft, blue light of the chamber. Princess Elira stood beside him, her chin high, her silver hair flowing like liquid light down her back. An elderly counselor spoke first. His voice was sharp, like the ringing of a blade. Captain Marcus Hale, the ancient record confirms your union with Princess Elira. Yet your loyalty and truth must be tested before this bond can be accepted. Marcus didn't flinch. And how exactly do you plan to test me? The counselor's golden eyes narrowed. Through the trial of truth. A murmur moved through the chamber. Marcus glanced at Elira, but her expression was unreadable. The trial, the counselor continued, is a sacred journey into the crystal caverns of Vorin. Two who claim a bond must pass together, facing tests of trust, courage, and unity. Only those who complete all trials can stand before the stars as true partners. Fail, and the bond is dissolved forever. Marcus crossed his arms. And what happens if we don't return? The counselor's gaze was cold. No one has ever returned from the caverns in defeat. The next day, Marcus and Elira stood at the entrance of the crystal caverns. The mountains of Vorin loomed above them, jagged peaks reaching into the violet sky. The mouth of the cavern was a dark wound in the rock, glowing faintly with a pale, shifting light. Two Zorith guards stood nearby, holding long spears crossed before the entrance. This is your last chance to refuse, one guard said. Once you enter. The only way out is forward. Marcus glanced at Elira. You sure about this? She met his gaze without hesitation. If you walk away now, the council will see you as a coward, and I will have no choice but to declare the bond broken. Marcus gave a short nod. Then let's get it over with. The guard stepped aside, and the two entered the cavern. The air inside was cool and damp. Light shimmered from the walls, crystals embedded in the rock, glowing in shades of blue and green. The path sloped downward, twisting like a snake. For the first hour, they walked in silence, their footsteps echoing. The crystals seemed to hum faintly, almost like voices whispering just out of reach. Finally, the passage opened into a wide chamber. At the center stood a pool of still water, its surface reflecting the crystals above like a mirror. Elira stopped. The first trial, she said quietly. The reflection of truth. Marcus frowned. What does that mean? She nodded toward the pool. Look into it, and it will show you the truth about yourself. But beware. The truth is not always what you wish to see. Marcus stepped forward and peered into the water. At first, he saw only his reflection. Then the image shifted. He saw himself as a boy, standing beside his father on a space station, holding a strange silver pendant. His father's face was calm but serious. This is your promise, Marcus, he said in the vision. One day, it will matter. Marcus felt a sharp ache in his chest. The image shifted again, now showing him on a battlefield, holding the body of a fallen soldier, his uniform stained with blood. Then the water went still again. He stepped back, his jaw tight. Your turn. Elira approached the pool. Her reflection changed almost immediately, showing a younger version of herself, laughing with a human boy on the palace balcony. The boy had dark hair, bright eyes, and he looked exactly like Marcus had when he was a child. Elira's breath caught. The vision shifted again, showing her standing alone in the palace hall, wearing mourning robes as war banners were raised. When the pool cleared, she turned away quickly. Let's move on. The second trial came in the form of a bridge made of crystal shards, suspended over a vast chasm. A cold wind howled up from below, carrying the scent of stone and darkness. Halfway across, the bridge began to shake violently. "Keep moving!" Marcus shouted over the noise. Elira's foot slipped on the slick surface. She grabbed at the edge, but a shard snapped loose, falling into the blackness below. Without thinking, Marcus lunged forward, catching her wrist. The force nearly pulled him over, but he dug his boots into the bridge and hauled her back up. For a moment. They stood close, breathing hard, their hands still gripping each other. "You could have let me fall," Elira said, her voice quiet but steady. "Not my style," Marcus replied. The third trial was the most dangerous. They entered, a chamber filled with floating crystal orbs that pulsed with light. Each orb released a faint hiss, and the air shimmered with heat. "This is the maze of light," Elira explained. "Touch the wrong crystal, and the chamber will collapse." Marcus scanned the room. "How do we know which ones are safe?" She pointed to faint patterns carved into the walls. "The symbols show the path, but we must read them together. One person alone cannot see the whole message." They moved slowly, step by step, calling out the symbols they saw. Twice they came close to touching the wrong orb, but Marcus's quick reflexes pulled them back. By the time they reached the far side, both were sweating, their hearts pounding. After hours of navigating the caverns, they finally reached the final chamber. At the center stood a massive crystal pillar, glowing with deep golden light. Around it lay carvings of Zorith and humans standing side by side. "This is it," Elira said. "The heart of the trial. We place our hands on the pillar together. If the pillar accepts us, the bond is proven. If not," Marcus nodded. "Let's do it." They stepped forward and placed their palms against the warm crystal surface. At first, nothing happened. Then, light flared from within the pillar, racing up and down its length. The glow spread to the floor, forming a ring of light around them. Images flashed in Marcus's mind. Moments from the war, from his childhood, from the visions in the pool. He saw Elira's face in each memory, not always clear, but always there. When the light faded, the pillar released a low hum, and the carvings on the walls shone brightly. "The trial accepts us," Elira said, her voice softer than before. Marcus looked at her, and for the first time there was no suspicion in her eyes, only a quiet certainty. But before either of them could speak, a deep rumble shook the chamber. Cracks split the floor, and dust rained from the ceiling. Elira's expression hardened. "We are not alone." From the shadows beyond the pillar, dark shapes emerged. Figures in black armor, their weapons glowing red. Marcus recognized them. Instantly. "Warborn," he said. "Remnants of the enemy." And just like that, the trial of truth became a fight for survival. The dark figures stepped forward, their armor shining black like the void between stars. Their red weapons hummed with deadly energy. Marcus's heart tightened. He recognized them instantly. The Warborn. They were a secret faction of Zorith, warriors who had refused the peace treaty. They believed the war must continue until humanity was wiped out. Even after the Empire signed the truce, the Warborn had hidden in shadows, planning revenge. Marcus glanced at Elira. She didn't flinch. Instead, she pulled her dagger from its sheath, the blade glowing with ancient runes. We have to hold them here, she said. If they reach the heart pillar, they will destroy it and break the trial. Marcus nodded. He drew his plasma rifle, feeling its familiar weight in his hands. Let's finish this. The chamber erupted into chaos. Red beams flashed through the sparkling crystals, shattering shards into 1,000 fragments. Marcus fired carefully, taking down 2 attackers before ducking behind a fallen crystal pillar. Illyra moved with deadly grace, slashing through the Warborn with her dagger. Each strike was precise, almost like a dance, and Marcus couldn't help but be impressed. But there were too many of them. The attackers pressed forward, surrounding the pair. Marcus shouted, "We need to stick together!" They moved back toward the heart pillar, their backs close. Marcus covered Illyra's left side while she protected his right. One Warborn lunged at Marcus, swinging a heavy energy axe. Marcus barely blocked the blow with his rifle, the force pushing him back. He spun and fired a burst, knocking the attacker down. Illyra shouted a command in Zorith, and Marcus caught a glimpse of a hidden panel on the wall. She pointed to it. "Help me open that," she said. Together they worked quickly, sliding panels, and pressing strange buttons until a narrow door slid open. "Inside!" Illyra ordered. They dove through the door just as a powerful blast hit the spot where they had been standing. The narrow corridor beyond the door was dimly lit and cool. The sound of battle faded behind them, but Marcus knew it was only a matter of time before the Warborn found them again. Illyra leaned against the wall, breathing heavily. That was close. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow. Too close. Suddenly, the corridor shook violently. Dust fell from the ceiling. "An earthquake?" Marcus asked. "No," Illyra said, her eyes sharp. "The Warborn must be using explosives to break through." The sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the other end of the corridor. They had to move. They ran through twisting passages, their footsteps echoing. The walls were made of a strange crystal that shimmered faintly with blue light. Marcus could feel the strange energy in the air. It made his skin tingle. "Do you know this place?" he asked Illyra. "Yes," she said. "This is the ancient part of the caverns, called the Labyrinth of Vorin. No one goes here unless they are tested." Marcus frowned. "And now the Warborn." Illyra nodded. "We must find the Chamber of Seals. It is the only way to lock the Warborn out." They moved faster, following the map etched into the walls. Suddenly, a figure stepped out from a dark alcove. It was a Warborn commander, tall with a scarred face and glowing red eyes. He smiled cruelly. "So, the human and the princess run together," he sneered. "You think you can survive the trial?" "You will die here." Marcus stepped forward, weapon raised. "We'll see about that." The Warborn commander lunged, swinging a heavy sword glowing with red energy. Marcus dodged, feeling the heat as the blade passed close. He fired his rifle, but the commander blocked the shot with his sword. Illyra charged from the side, dagger, flashing. The commander spun and slashed at her, but she dodged and slashed his arm. The battle was fierce. Marcus and Illyra fought as one, covering each other's blind spots, moving with a rhythm born of trust and necessity. Finally, Marcus saw an opening. With a swift strike, he knocked the commander's sword away and tackled him to the ground. Illyra pressed her dagger to the commander's throat. "Leave, or die here," she said coldly. The commander snarled but backed away. With a final glare, he disappeared into the shadows. The corridor opened into a massive chamber filled with glowing seals carved into the floor and walls. "This is the Chamber of Seals," Illyra said. "If we activate these, the passages will close, trapping the Warborn outside." Marcus knelt beside the nearest seal. It was warm to the touch, pulsing with energy. Illyra joined him, and together they pressed their hands on the seal. The chamber hummed. The seals glowed brighter, and the cavern trembled. Outside, the distant sounds of fighting grew louder, then began to fade. The Warborn were being sealed out. Exhausted but relieved, Marcus and Elira sat beside the heart pillar. "We did it," Marcus said quietly. "But this was more than a trial. It was a war." Elira looked at him, her expression softening. "You fought with honor and courage. You earned my respect." Marcus smiled. "I never thought I'd fight side by side with an alien princess," she laughed softly. "Nor did I think I would trust a human." For the first time, there was no distance between them, no suspicion, only the quiet bond forged in fire. Outside the chamber, the light from the heart pillar shone brighter than ever, a sign that the trial of truth was nearly complete. But Marcus knew their journey was far from over. The glow from the heart pillar bathed the chamber in warm, golden light. Marcus and Elira stood side by side, their hands still resting on the smooth crystal surface. The trials were over. The council's test had been passed. Yet, the true challenge was only beginning. Back in the royal palace, news of the trial of truth spread like wildfire. The council was divided, some eager to honor the ancient bond, others wary of tying the fate of the Zorith Empire to a human warrior. King Velron, a tall man with silver hair and eyes like molten bronze, sat at the head of the council chamber. His voice was calm but firm as he addressed the assembly. "The trial has proven Captain Marcus Hale's loyalty and courage. The ancient law binds him to Princess Elira." Murmurs filled the room. "But," the king continued, "this is not just about law. It is about choice. A union is more than a contract. It is a bond of trust and heart." He looked toward his daughter. "Elira, the decision is yours." Elira sat alone in her chamber, the city lights flickering like stars below. Marcus stood, nearby, silent but patient. For days she had wrestled with her feelings. Duty and honor told her to accept the bond, but her heart was unsure. Marcus was a stranger in many ways, a human with different ways and thoughts, yet through the trials and battles, she had come to trust him. "Marcus," she said quietly, "this is not just a marriage of law. It must be a marriage of choice." Marcus smiled softly. "Then choose me not because you have to, but because you want to." She studied him, the warmth in his eyes, the strength in his presence. For the first time, the weight on her shoulders seemed lighter. "I choose you," she said finally, her voice steady. "Not because the law demands it, but because I believe in what we can build together." The announcement was made in the Great Hall of Stars. The entire court, diplomats from distant worlds, and citizens watched on crystal screens. Princess Elira stepped forward, radiant in a robe woven with threads of silver and blue. Marcus stood beside her, his military uniform polished and bright. "My people," she began, her voice clear and strong. "Today we honor an ancient bond renewed, not by duty alone, but by choice. Captain Marcus Hale is not only my husband, by law, but by my heart." A cheer rose from the crowd, though not everyone was pleased. Some council members exchanged uneasy glances, worried about what this union meant for their traditions. Marcus took Elira's hand. "Together, we will face the future, not as two worlds divided, but as one." In the days that followed, preparations began for the wedding ceremony, a blend of human and Zorith traditions. Marcus learned to wear the Zorith ceremonial armor, crafted from lightweight crystal and metal that shimmered under the light. Elira showed him how to perform the ancient greetings, their hands moving gracefully in ways that symbolized respect and unity. They trained together, laughed together, and shared stories of their childhoods, worlds apart but slowly coming closer. One evening, under the twin suns setting over Velthara, Marcus and Elira walked through the palace gardens. The air was warm, filled with the scent of alien blossoms and the soft hum of distant music. Elira paused, turning to him. Before this union, I never imagined I could trust a human. You have changed that." Marcus smiled. "And you have shown me the strength behind your people's honor." She reached for his hand, squeezing it gently. "Whatever comes next, we face it together." The wedding day arrived. The Hall of Stars was filled with glowing crystals, casting light like stars. Caught in glass, leaders from across the galaxy gathered to witness the union that symbolized hope, the promise that two worlds, once at war, could find peace in understanding and love. Elira wore a flowing gown of silver and blue, her hair adorned with delicate crystal beads. Marcus stood tall in his ceremonial armor, his heart pounding with a mix of pride and nervousness. The ceremony was simple but beautiful. The ancient vows were spoken in both Zorith and human languages, echoing through the hall with solemn grace. When they exchanged rings, delicate bands forged from the rarest metals of both worlds, the crowd erupted into cheers. After the Seda ceremony, Marcus and Elira stood on the balcony looking out over the city of Velthara. "Do you believe we can truly change the future?" Marcus asked. Elira nodded, her eyes shining. "With trust and unity, yes. Our marriage is a beginning." He wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Then let's build that future. Together." The twin suns dipped below the horizon, casting the city in twilight. Two worlds, once enemies, now joined as one, and the stars above watched silently, hopeful for what was to come.